On Mother's Day, a card arrived for me, and my daughter insisted I read it aloud to the group. Roses are red, violets are blue. You're a heavy load. Nobody wants you around. The room erupted in laughter at my expense. My name is Grace. At 74 years old, that moment marked the deepest shame I've ever endured. It unfolded on a Sunday morning, with sunlight pouring into the living room as I stepped into my daughter Danielle's home to mark my special occasion. I wore my beloved green dress, the one that always lent me a touch of sophistication. I'd carried along fresh blooms and sugary goodies for the grandchildren. Grandma Grace, the youngest, called out, dashing over to me. Their embraces warmed my soul with delight. For an instant, it all felt ideal. My son-in-law, Michael, offered only a curt, lifeless nod in greeting. Danielle emerged from the kitchen bearing a grin that failed to light up her gaze. "Mom, we're thrilled you're here. We've got a unique gift lined up for you." I lowered myself onto the couch, encircled by loved ones. The children gathered around my legs, buzzing with eagerness. From her bag, Danielle retrieved a pink envelope and passed it over. "This is from the whole bunch, Mom. Share it verbally for all to enjoy." My fingers shook a bit as I unsealed it. Inside, the card featured tiny floral sketches from the kids. How touching, I mused. I began reciting in a steady, eager tone. "Roses are red, violets are." My words faltered. The following lines struck like blows. "You're a heavy load. Nobody wants you around. Your era is over. Time to depart. Signed, your kin who can no longer tolerate you." A heavy quiet hung for 3 endless moments. Then Michael broke into a harsh, derisive chuckle. Danielle pressed a hand to her lips, though her amusement was obvious. The children, grasping only fragments, joined in the snickers since the grown-ups were. "Mom, your expression was priceless," Danielle remarked amid her giggles. "Michael, did you snap a photo? You had to catch that look." My spirit crumbled. Salty drops traced paths over my lined face. The card slipped from my quivering grip onto the rug. "It's merely a prank, Mom," Danielle went on. Yet no hint of regret colored her words. "Lighten up. You're always so overwrought." Michael approached and lifted the card from the ground. "Exactly, Grace. We were only messing about." He hesitated awkwardly. "Though, truth be told, you've been around too much these days. Perhaps explore some alternatives." "Alternatives?" I queried, my tone fracturing. "You mean," Danielle replied, perching before me, "there are excellent assisted living spots for folks your age, facilities suited to peers like yourself. It might suit you better." The phrase assisted living echoed in my thoughts like a grim verdict. My flesh and blood aimed to discard me as if I were outdated refuse. But, I murmured faintly, I believed I was here to honor Mother's Day together. "And you are, Mom," Michael cut in with patronizing sarcasm. "Simply facing facts now. Youth has left you. You require dedicated support, and we've got our individual routines." The grandchildren stared at me in bewilderment. The eldest, just shy of 8, approached and clasped my palm. "Grandma, what's making you tear up?" Before I responded, Danielle drew him back. "Over here, kiddo. Grandma's okay. She's only getting emotional." I remained seated, engulfed in a solitude deeper than any I'd known. On what should have been a tribute to my role as mother, my daughter had shamed me openly, casting me as the household's vicious punchline. I rose unsteadily, my limbs unsteady. I ought to leave." "Sure, Mom," Danielle responded without rising to farewell. "We'll touch base soon." I made my way to the exit, clinging to the remnants of my poise, though my inner realm lay in ruins. That evening, alone in my quiet home, I wept until exhaustion claimed the last drops. Yet a shift stirred within me. The degradation ignited a long, slumbering resolve. My relatives would soon discover the real essence of Grace. Come morning, I cut off contact with them entirely. But prior to that, I had to trace back to this agonizing juncture. I settled into my cherished recliner, the very spot where I'd cradled Danielle during her infancy 45 years prior, and permitted recollections to unfold like scenes from a film. Everything began when I turned 29. Danielle's dad deserted us when she was merely 3. One dawn, he had vanished. A scribbled message awaited on the kitchen counter. "I can't handle this existence. Apologies." He skipped even a parting word for his little girl. I recall that evening enfolding Danielle as she sobbed for her father. "Daddy's journeyed to a distant place, darling," I soothed, vowing inwardly that she'd lack for nothing. And I upheld that vow. For 15 years, I pulled double duties at the fabric factory. My palms grew rough from stitching garments into the wee hours. Each spare penny went toward Danielle's schooling. At 17, when she dreamed of pursuing nursing, I parted with my mother's heirloom jewels, the sole treasures in my possession. But witnessing the sparkle in my child's eyes after chatting with her about her aspirations, I jumped at the chance without a moment's pause. "Mom, are you certain?" she inquired that very day, sounding utterly confident. "Darling, nothing matters more than your schooling," I replied. Over her 5 years in college, I toiled on weekends scrubbing office spaces. I'd return home with my spine aching terribly. Yet spotting Danielle poring over her books at the kitchen table made every bit of it worthwhile. On graduation day, tears of joy streamed down my face. "We made it, Mom," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me fiercely. "None of this could have happened without your support." Soon after, she crossed paths with Michael. Initially, he impressed me. He was courteous, diligent, and appeared to truly adore her. For their wedding, I covered half the costs, $12,000 I'd scrimped together over the years. But I yearned for my girl to enjoy the ceremony she'd always envisioned. "Mom, this is excessive," Danielle objected as I passed her the check. "Baloney," I shot back with a grin. "It's your biggest milestone. You merit the best." When they purchased their initial house, I handed over the $25,000 deposit, draining every penny I'd set aside. Still, watching them beam with delight in their fresh abode brought me pure contentment. Then came the grandchildren, 2 precious tots who lit up my world. Once Danielle resumed her job post-maternity, I stepped in as their unpaid caregiver. For 3 straight years, I'd trek 6 blocks to their place each morning at 6 a.m. I'd prepare the little ones' meals, get them ready, escort them to the playground, nourish them, wash them up, and tuck them in with bedtime tales. By the time Danielle arrived back from her shift, everything was spotless, and the kids were beaming. "We'd be lost without you, Mom," she'd say back then. "You're a saint." However, things shifted bit by bit. Gratitude faded into rarity. My advice on the children began feeling like meddling. When I pointed out that the younger one ought to visit the doctor for his ongoing cough, Michael snapped, "Grace, are we the parents here?" The initial instance of such tone left me speechless. I figured perhaps I'd overstepped. Subtle digs followed soon. "Mom, you seem less vigorous these days for childcare." "Grace, I suspect you mixed up the kids' supplements once more. Maybe take it easier at your place." Despite it all, I persisted daily. I continued assisting. I poured in my utmost effort. 2 years back, after Michael got laid off, I began wiring them $500 monthly to safeguard their home. "This is short-term," they assured me. "Only till Michael lands a superior gig." He secured new employment after 6 months, yet they never mentioned halting the funds. They simply accepted it like an entitlement. Without prompting, I shelled out $2,000 for the children's school laptops. When Danielle's vehicle failed, I provided $4,000 to fix it. For their kitchen upgrade, I chipped in $8,000. Gradually, I turned into the quiet financier, ever ready to bail out their money woes, yet sidelined from key family choices. A year prior, Danielle arranged a birthday meal for Michael. I learned of it accidentally via one grandchild's slip about the hushed gathering. Why exclude me? I questioned her on the call. "Oh, Mom, it was tiny, just us 4. We figured it'd bore you." But social media pics revealed the truth. 20 guests, including Michael's kin I knew intimately. All but me had made the list. That evening, I wept alone. Still, I convinced myself it was mere forgetfulness. Such lapses turned habitual. They skipped my birthday call. They bailed on our planned outings. Surprise visits from me always irked them, like unwelcome disruptions. But the breaking point hit 3 months ago. While aiding with supper at their home, I caught Michael on the patio phone chat. Yeah, my mother-in-law's on her own now. She's turning overly reliant. No illness, but folks that age can be, you know. Yep, we're scouting spots to relocate her suitably. I stood rigid by the doorway. My son-in-law plotted to discard me like worn-out junk. Sleep evaded me that night. I devoted my entire existence, every dollar, every ounce of affection to this clan, only to become a burden they aimed to discard. Yet they overlooked a crucial detail about me, a secret I'd guarded for years. Prior to her passing, my mother revealed an inherited beachside apartment in Nassau, Bahamas that became mine at age 70. Rented out for ages, the proceeds had piled up untouched in an account. Plus, I'd invested proceeds from my childless Aunt Lucille's estate, bonds, equities, CDs, that multiplied steadily as I subsisted on my basic retirement benefits. Altogether, nearly $400,000 sat hidden, unknown to my relatives. They viewed me as a destitute elder, scraping by on aid. They had no clue that I'd been quietly bankrolling their easy lifestyle for years, driven by affection rather than obligation. Yet following the sting of that Mother's Day insult, a part of me shattered irreparably. It was high time they discovered Grace's real worth. That vicious message served as my harsh reality check. I spent the entire Mother's Day night wide awake, clutching the card with shaking fingers. Those phrases reverberated endlessly in my mind. You're a heavy burden. No one wants you here. But once the tears subsided on my face, an odd shift began. The grief morphed into a fiercer force, sharp insight, resolve. After decades, I finally viewed my circumstances with unflinching truth. I wasn't the weight they claimed. I was the support holding them up. Rising slowly, I headed to my room. From the dresser, I retrieved a wooden chest untouched for months. It held my vital records, financial reports, property titles, shares and investments. Reviewing the files, I ran some quick figures in my head that left me stunned. Over the past 5 years, I'd handed Danielle and Michael precisely $67,000, money they accepted like it was owed to them, all while their behavior toward me grew more disdainful. The home deposit, $25,000. Their marriage celebration, $12,000. Regular support for 2 years, $12,000. Laptops for the children, $2,000. Fixing the vehicle, $4,000. Updating the kitchen, $8,000. Plus countless minor costs, totaling another $4,000. In contrast, I remained in my simple dwelling, donning the identical green outfit for church, trudging to the market on foot to cut fuel expenses. Still, that wasn't the deepest wound. The true pain stemmed from recalling how their attitude toward me had shifted. I recalled my eldest grandson's celebration half a year back. As usual, I showed up ahead of time to assist with setup, but Michael answered the door wearing an irritated expression. Grace, the event kicks off at 3. What's with arriving so soon? I figured I could pitch in with the setup, I replied, forcing a grin. No assistance required. Danielle's got it all sorted. In the background, I spotted his mom, Brenda, stringing up decorations indoors. She'd been welcome to lend a hand. I felt like an intruder. I'll just linger out front till 3, I muttered, embarrassment flooding me. Stop overreacting, Mom, Danielle chimed in from the kitchen, drying her hands on her apron. You're welcome to hang around, but steer clear of the cooking area. You tend to mix up the instructions. Mix up instructions? Me, who'd prepared meals for that household for generations. That afternoon, I perched awkwardly in a patio nook, an outsider at my own kin's gathering. I observed Brenda aiding with the spread, while visitors praised her homemade dessert. I, who'd covered roughly half the costs for the affair, faded into oblivion. During the birthday song, I hung back as the group encircled my grandson. Nobody realized I was absent from the snapshots. That evening, as I quietly gathered some soiled dishes, my grandson approached. "Grandma, why so subdued today?" "Just worn out, sweetie," I fibbed. "Grandma Brenda mentioned you're past the age for lively bashes." His innocent remark sliced into me deeply. Brenda, merely 3 years my junior, was bad-mouthing me to my grandkids as outdated. Even through that embarrassment, I continued sending cash, offering aid, clinging to optimism for improvement. What a naive fool I'd been. Another memory surfaced from the previous Christmas. I'd splurged on lavish items for all: a fresh bike for the elder boy, an e-reader for the little one, upscale French scent for Danielle. That drill set Michael had casually desired. It came to nearly $3,000 in total. On Christmas Eve, I turned up laden with elegantly packaged boxes. The children dashed over, thrilled, only for Danielle to summon them away. Young ones, tuck Grandma's items beneath the tree alongside the rest. We'll unwrap everything as a group come morning. My offerings blended into the pile of their own acquisitions. As presents were revealed, nobody credited the givers. The kids offered general thanks to the bunch, but the real ache hit later. I'd also included a cherished heirloom for Danielle, a strand of pearls from my grandmother, an old treasure priceless and steeped in lineage. "Mom, that's quite lovely," she remarked, not bothering to try it. "But honestly, jewelry isn't my thing. Perhaps hold on to it till the kids grow up." She pushed the container back my way, skipping even a peek at the gems inside. For months, I'd pictured her donning those beads, linking back to 3 eras of our women's legacy. Alone in my quiet home that evening, I wept while cradling the pearl case. The cost wasn't the issue. It was her utter disregard for a token straight from my soul. But the breaking point arrived. 2 months back, when the flu hit me hard, I ended up confined to my bed for 7 straight days, battling a temperature around 102 degrees. Cooking was out of the question, and even dragging myself to the restroom felt impossible. I reached out to Danielle, hoping she'd drop off some food or just check in on me. "Mom, things are hectic here. Michael's swamped with a major work assignment, and I'm pulling doubles at the hospital. Why not reach out to a neighbor?" "But sweetie, I'm struggling just to stand." "Mom, you're not a kid anymore. Time to handle your own stuff. We can't rush over for every sniffle." A sniffle. I was burning up with fever, yet she dismissed it like that. She ended the call and never followed up once during that whole period. It was Mrs. Johnson, the 82-year-old lady next door whom I hardly knew, who delivered warm homemade broth and ensured I swallowed my pills. A near stranger displayed more compassion than my flesh and blood. Once I pulled through and resumed my habit of dropping by the family's place, nobody bothered to inquire about my ordeal. That awful stretch might as well have vanished from existence. And there I was now, staring at those banking papers spread out before me, grasping with sharp anguish the true role I played in their world. I wasn't the cherished grandma. I served as the family cash dispenser on speed dial. When cash was short, I'd get warmth. When they required unpaid childcare, I'd get appreciation. When they wanted to unload their anger, I'd absorb it all. Yet when I craved affection, support, dignity, or even a quick check-in while sick, I simply faded away. That evening, I faced the toughest choice ever. I pulled out my dusty laptop and accessed my online banking after a long hiatus. Some major adjustments were overdue. To start, I halted the recurring $500 monthly deposit into Danielle's account. Next, I shut down the shared savings setup we'd created for household crises, which they'd tapped exclusively. Then, I revised my will entirely. All the portions earmarked for Danielle and Michael shifted to a charity aiding neglected elderly folks. Finally, I took a step I never imagined, purchasing a flight to Nassau to check out the vacation home I'd come into. The moment had arrived to embrace the existence I truly merited. Still, prior to departing, I'd ensure they grasped the full extent of what they'd forfeited. It was Tuesday dawn when I set my strategy in motion. I'd managed just 3 hours of rest, yet for the first time in ages, I felt utterly alert, utterly resolute. I slipped into my finest gray ensemble, the one acquired for Danielle's college commencement but seldom donned. I meticulously did my cosmetics and twisted my locks into an elegant updo. I aimed to appear as the formidable figure I truly embodied, not the frail senior they imagined. My initial destination was the bank. My advisor, Mr. Henderson, seemed taken aback by my early arrival. "Mrs. Grace, what brings you in today?" "I require key modifications to my holdings," I stated steadily. In the ensuing 2 hours, I overhauled my financial setup from top to bottom. I terminated every automated payment to Danielle's profiles. I terminated the collaborative account initiated 3 years prior. I shifted funds from my portfolios into my primary current account. "Are you certain about these shifts, madam?" Mr. Henderson queried, his tone laced with unease. "These represent substantial alterations." "Absolutely certain. This is my wealth, and I'll manage it as I see fit." From there, I headed to my attorney's practice, Mr. Franklin, who'd overseen our clan's legal matters for generations. "I must overhaul my testament completely," I declared bluntly. Mr. Franklin, a seasoned gentleman who'd watched me since Danielle's toddler days, removed his spectacles and eyed me worriedly. "Grace, is all well? This strikes as quite severe." "All is splendid. For the first time in ages, my vision is crystal clear. I outlined my precise wishes. The allocations once intended for Danielle and Michael now directed to an organization supporting elderly without homes. I further created a fund for the grandchildren, accessible solely at age 25 and conditional on authentic engagement with me, free from mere duty. Grace, perhaps mull it over a bit longer. Such choices can't be undone. I've pondered for 74 years, Mr. Franklin, and the past 5 have revealed all I required. I affixed my signature to the papers with unwavering poise. No tremor, no hesitation. My following visit was to the booking office. I'd spent the night delving into details on my Nassau asset. It turned out to be a 3-bedroom unit in a lovely district. For years, a rental firm had leased it out, funneling earnings into a separate account I'd left untouched. "I'd like a departure to Nassau this Friday," I informed the agent. "Vacation getaway, ma'am." "No, a journey toward freedom." I selected premium seating. If launching afresh, I'd arrive with flair. Yet before setting off, one final task remained: the correspondence. By midday, I returned home and settled at my writing table. I retrieved the refined stationery I'd purchased it many years back, though it had sat unused ever since. Now was the moment to lay out the truth for my relatives about what had transpired. The initial note went to Danielle. "My beloved child, when these words reach your eyes, I'll already be heading toward Nassau, settling into the estate passed down from my kin, one you were unaware of. I've resolved to end the monetary aid I've extended to you over recent years. That $500 monthly allowance is now terminated for good. The shared account for urgent needs, it's shut down. View this not as retribution, but as a vital education in self-reliance, something I ought to have instilled in you long before. For years on end, I poured out all I possessed, my hours, my funds, my vitality, my unwavering affection. Yet eventually, you came to regard me as a liability rather than a gift." The Mother's Day greeting merely broke the camel's back. The issues began far sooner, back when you ceased viewing me as your parent and began treating me like your household servant and endless ATM. I've revised my testament. My legacy will pass to those who genuinely cherish kindness and familial bonds. Your offspring can tap into a fund at age 25, provided they demonstrate a sincere connection with me. Seek me out for cash. Don't phone to plead my return. No. Dispatch the little ones to tug at my heartstrings. Absolutely not. If you truly wish to reclaim your mom, you'll need to show that you prize me for my essence, not my provisions. From your mother, who at last recognizes her own worth, Grace. The next message was addressed to Michael. Michael, you were never merely my daughter's spouse in my eyes. I embraced you as the boy I never bore, yet you reduced me to the inconvenient in-law you plotted to discard. I overheard your call 3 months prior, discussing a suitable spot to relocate me, as though I were outdated furniture cluttering the space. Unbeknownst to you, the ideal spot had always been within my grasp. There's that Nassau holding, plus assets yielding far more income than your annual earnings, granting me the liberty to dwell anywhere and any way I desire. Silently, across the years, I bankrolled your easy existence. I covered fixes, chipped in for costs, handled crises. It stemmed from affection, not duty. But you misconstrued my open-handedness as frailty, my presence as neediness, my care as irritation. From here on, you'll manage without my support. Once the messages were complete, I sealed them in an envelope and placed it on the living room table, primed for them to find. Then I settled into the couch, a grin spreading across my face. It had required 74 years, but I'd grasped life's key insight. People learn how to handle you based on what you'll tolerate. For ages, I settled for scraps of warmth out of fear of solitude. Yet solitude proved vastly superior to sharing space with those who held no regard for me. And with that realization, isolation vanished entirely. I was liberated. Nassau awaited. And after so many years, anticipation filled me for the first time in ages about my